Well, I've said about people before, if brains were gasoline, they couldn't propel a flea's motorcycle around a raindrop. But the old saying goes as well, if Dynamite was any weaker, TBS wouldn't be able to blow their nose, as I said at the top of the program. And the one thing I asked you to do before we went on the air, Brian, last, was not tell me, I haven't heard, because I've had all of the outside conflicts and issues and workmen and etc. I haven't heard what the ratings were for Dynamite, nor the ratings pattern. I haven't heard anything. I wanted you to keep me in the dark until we finish talking about this program. But that not only have the adults left the room, but the delinquent children have corrupted the weak-willed teacher.
Summer camp nightmare.
It's a summer camp nightmare.
I told you, summer camp nightmare.
Oh, my God. And now, I don't know what's going to go on, but again, we're going to ask the question, if you're a major wrestling star, do you ever again trust this outfit with your career for any amount of money? All righty.
If you're a fan, do you trust them? If you're a fan who watches them to be an alternative, do you trust AEW?
Well, it depends on what you trust them to do. Do I trust them to drop the ball every time they get it? Yes. And with what's gone on over the last year or so, every opportunity, every time they've had somebody get hot that wasn't in the... They should have just, instead of the Elite, they should have just called themselves the Clique. Only the thing that everybody forgets about the Clique and the WWF, and even I admit this, the Clique were assholes, but the Clique were drawing money. This Clique doesn't draw the money, but still is assholes to all the talent that is drawing the money. So we'll go through this and figure that out for ourselves with the evidence on display. Remember, Darby Allin got caught underneath the garage door and in a figure four leg lock at the hands of Jay Lethal here not long ago. So the opening match on Dynamite was Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin in a grudge match. And again, I'm not going to talk as much about the matches on this program as why they're happening, or in some cases, asking why they're happening, or how little sense they make. I would have loved this match. First of all, I'd love the match if they'd used the ring, because they didn't much. Darby loves to get flung around like a fucking satchel on the floor. But can you imagine? Jay Lethal is so good. Imagine how good this might have been, not only as potentially as a match, but as a draw, as a ratings draw, or as something of interest to the fans, if Jay had been presented as a person on the level of Darby Allin, on the level of any of the stars from the start. It's the same thing that Tony has done with everybody, ex-Ring of Honor talent or not. Everybody comes in, except the obvious, Punk or whatever. Everybody comes in and gets beat. Not only once, but multiple times on television. And I'll try to explain this again. I don't care if everybody knows, in quotation marks, who so-and-so is and what they've done and their whole life story. When a new talent comes into a new promotion, comes into a new television program, who they work with in their first match and whether it's competitive or not and whether they win or lose or not tells the fans what level to take them at. And when it's not just once, but it's several times, that confirms the mental picture that the fan has. Okay, this guy's a middle card guy, he's an underneath guy, he's a star, whatever he is. And you don't just bring people in with no plan and have them have good matches with people on television and get beat, and then suddenly, after 2 months or 3 months or 6 months, then you start giving them wins. Horses out of the barn, cowboy. So, this match, Jay Lethal is a tremendous talent. Darby Allin, as we've said, has his own weird charisma. They spent a lot of time out on the floor because Darby likes it that way. And they went to break 5 minutes into the show with neither guy in the ring and nothing happening. Darby's down selling and Jay's wandering around. So for the lead-in audience that they got, they see Darby Allin. He's been presented as a star. Yes, he has interest. Then they see Jay Lethal, great wrestler that they've never really been told is a great wrestler because their first impressions of him were he gets beat. And then they go to break 5 minutes in without being in a gripping contest. So I'm interested to see how many people stuck around. But coming back on the other side of the break, they were in the ring. The best spot of the match, Darby Allin does a suicide dive out of the ring on Zippy, the giant pinhead, and he just bounced right off him. The guy didn't even move.
That looked incredible.
That was a tremendous visual. And that's the kind of thing that if you are going to do it, know you can do it in an angle. But anyway, as soon as that happened and the referee's kicking Zippy and Sanjay out of ringside, a guy dressed as Sting in a Sting mask and black, blah, 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 attacks Darby Allin from behind on the floor, throws him in the ring, and Jay Lethal hits the lethal injection 1, 2, 3. And by the way, that move, I know it's Gaga, but there's always a Gaga move that somebody does so well you can buy it and you don't mind it. And with that move, Jay's so smooth with it, and if a guy takes it smooth, I know it's Gaga, the guy doesn't have to stand there, but it does look good. So I'm not going to browbeat him for that. But if Jay Lethal had beat Darby Allin, even in this convoluted finish, in his first TV appearance, Darby Allin would be the same and Jay Lethal would be a lot better off. But here we get to the good part. Because you can tell that Tony is going into hyperactive mode trying to be the Booker of the Year. Because he's making this shit so complicated you couldn't figure it out with a compass and a Rosetta Stone. Because everybody knows that the best booking is always so fucking complicated, you need a protractor and a notepad to figure it out. So, they unveil Sting and make a big show, and I know where they were going with this, and I'll explain it in a second, but still, my God. They unveil Sting and make a big build up to it, and he takes the mask off, and the people are kind of rumbling like, who's it going to be, who's it going to be? And they take the mask off, and the people fall dead silent. And the announcers scream, "What? It's Cole Carter!" And the people are standing there going, who the fuck is that? I mean, the announcers could have said, it's Dan Tucker.
It was the most audience silence I've ever heard from a reveal ever. Ever.
Get out of the way for old Dan Tucker. He's too late to have his supper. Supper's over and dinner's cooking. Old Dan Tucker just stands there looking. Old Dan Tucker rode to town, riding a mule and leading a hound. Hound dog barked and mule did buck. Old Dan Tucker had real bad luck. Get out of the way for old Dan Tucker. He's a real motherfucker.
If you wanted to sing, you just had to say you wanted to sing today.
So they're standing there as Dan Tucker.
Cole
Carter. And suddenly music plays and it's Sting. And there's the lights and the snow. And the heels jump out in the aisle wave where, of course, if somebody's coming to attack you and you're in the ring, it's better, you'll get a better vantage point if you jump down in the aisle so you can't catch them coming through the ropes. They got a fair shot. So they're waiting in the aisleway for the appearance of Sting. And Darby Allin stands up in the ring, and in the back of Darby Allin from behind, into the ring comes Jeff Jarrett. And I'll tell you one thing, apparently us Tennessee boys are the only ones that can do a surprise debut. Because think about this. Every surprise debut that you can think of in the last 15 years has been stooged off or rumored or hinted at or widely known, except mine and Jeff Jarrett's. When we show up, we keep it a secret. And a lot of people out there now are saying, I wish the promotion would too. But nevertheless, so Jeff comes in and Darby won't turn around and Jeff's winding up and Darby apparently is going to just stand there forever. So Jeff reaches, grabs him and spins him and hits him over the head with the guitar, which apparently busted him open hard way because as he's laying there, a pool of blood starts appearing around his head. And Jeff cut a promo about his family legacy and how long they've been in wrestling and that they always make an impact and that body bags are on the way. And he knocked some of the production people because they all used to work for him and probably at this point will again. And here's the thing. An hour later, I guess right after the show was by the time the show went off the air, Tony Khan had tweeted welcoming Jeff Jarrett to the company and announcing that he was also going to have a position as an executive in the office. Okay, either one of these things I will work with. Everybody knows I think Jeff Jarrett's a fucking fantastic wrestling mind and talent. He's right now, if he walked in there, he'd be one of the upper 10 percentile of best workers on the TNA roster. At his age, he's still in great shape, but because of his...
You just hit the problem right there. You don't even realize it.
Well, yeah, and that's part of the problem.
You said TNA.
Or did I say TNA? I'm sorry.
That's the problem. It conjures up thoughts of TNA. That's the exact problem.
But here we go. We're going to break this down. He would be one of the upper 10 percentile of the wrestlers in the AEW roster because he was one of the upper 10 percentile of wrestlers in the TNA roster. He's had 30 plus years of experience, started as a teenager. He grew up in the business. He's worked with everybody. He can work with everybody. He can wrestle. He can fight. He can do the Tennessee stuff. He can fucking work. And that's indeed the problem is that he would come in and he knows how to be a heel and a babyface. And he would come in and be able to have a match with anybody on this roster. But that's not where right now Jeff Jarrett to me is needed. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the point is, for Tony to do a surprise debut of a heel that comes in, breaks a guitar over one of the babyface's heads, busts him open, announces he's going to fuck with everybody there because they're all a bunch of fucking kids, basically, and body bags are on the way. And the owner of the company an hour later says, welcome, Jeff, you're going to be an executive. These two things cannot coexist, can they? What the fuck why?
Unless Tony's turned heel.
That's what he's turned to crack, apparently. The other stuff wasn't strong enough. So, and here's another thing. As much as I like Jeff Jarrett's work, and even though he's in good shape at his age, better shape than most people are at any age, goddamn, they don't need him in the ring at this point. They need him in the office. But if he's going to be in the office, he shouldn't come out doing angles, buzzing people open, and promising body bags. But Punk returned, who was, and here again, I'll give each man their proper respect. CM Punk didn't grow up in the wrestling business and didn't fucking start his own promotion multiple times like Jeff did. But Jeff, honestly, has never been in a position as a money-drawing talent that CM Punk was. So Punk came and did bring on the roster, did bring business, did bring pay-per-view buys, did bring house show gates, did bring ratings. And they still couldn't get close to the WWE. Jeff Jarrett is not going to bring the numbers in those categories that Punk did as a wrestler. Jeff Jarrett should have been brought in as a guy who, again, has dealt with every goddamn wrestler in some fashion or another. It's been in the business for the last 25 or 30 years. And whether some people don't like him or not, he knows how to fucking... He was the one, it wasn't Dixie Carter, for fuck's sake. He was the one that kept all those disparate, obnoxious, egotistical, and or motivated or unmotivated personalities in TNA on the same page most of the time for quite a few years. I would not only have Jeff's input in promoting live events, which is his strong point, finding local sponsors, local tie-ins, getting people into buildings to buy tickets, but I would also have him be the one who, as a guy, again, who's been in every position in this business. Promoter, booker, matchmaker, creative team, he's done what, wrestler, etc. There's your talent relations guy. Because at least he can talk to him as a wrestler instead of a modern entitled prick or a goddamn nobody or a never was that nobody's going to listen to. But I don't see how all these things can happen at the same time. Or then you're setting yourself up. But now here's another wrestler that would have an office position. And I guess now the rumor that's been floating around of what his office position is that he might help with international markets. Well, yes, he did the thing with fucking the India show, Ring Ka King or whatever, while TNA was going on. But I mean, you know, yeah, let's get the most experienced guy that we've got in the company at a variety of things, and let's send him over to Bombay. What the fuck is going on here? So yeah, new heel, promising body bags, also going to be in the office, and in obviously being used in areas where his tremendous expertise is not as needed as it is in others. What do you think, young Brian Last?
Well, I killed this on Twitter, so I should probably explain a little bit about why I think the way I do. I'll talk first about on-air, just on-air stuff. You have been praising Jay Lethal as long as I know you, but I know you longer than you know Jay Lethal. For years, you've been praising Jay Lethal to me, and especially lately with him in AEW, so now he's in front of us. I've never been as big a fan as you, but I trust your word on wrestling. I keep trying to see it. The stuff in the ring in this match was great. The rest of the match and the layout of the match, blame whoever you want. But the last thing this guy needs is for people to be reminded that he was in TNA.
Yeah.
And this was Team TNA. Him and Sanjay and Jeff Jarrett? I don't think this helps anything. This promotion, from day one, has had comparisons to the worst of TNA and the worst of WCW. And when fucking Jeff Jarrett shows up on that show with a fucking guitar, that is the biggest turnoff to so many people. I don't even know if I can put it into words. If there's any image of the worst of TNA, who was the champ? Who was on top? Jeff Jarrett. The worst of WCW, who was in the middle of it?
Now, wait a minute. I don't think Jeff Jarrett was the champion during the worst of TNA. Remember how long that thing lasted before Aunt Dixie slunk off.
You're right. I'll get to the behind-the-scenes stuff, but I don't think it's a positive to Jay Lethal, but maybe that's a lost cause right now. I don't think it's a positive to the overall show to have Jeff Jarrett on there. That's not to take away what he could do in the ring. Because I think the problem has always been he's a much, much, much more talented wrestler than he is someone that the fans invest in.
I will concur with that.
He's an incredibly talented wrestler. However, it conjures up feelings like mine, like, oh, it feels like the end of WCW when you see Jeff Jarrett and his fucking guitar. Behind the scenes, I agree he can help with a lot of stuff. I don't know if he's, some people say he should be Tony's right-hand man or the head of creative. I'm not going to go that far. Get him in the door first. Let's see how he coexists with everyone.
Well, and see, here's the thing. Jeff was
like the Senate over there.
Jeff was the head of the creative team in TNA. And of course, then you had the dynamic of Russo working against him and behind his back with Dixie and blah, blah, blah. But whether he was there or not, Jeff was always the head of creative, but he didn't sit down and do the whole thing himself. That's why he had Dutch. That's why he had other people at various points in time. And I'm not saying that Jeff should be the head of creative. I'm saying Jeff should help Tony Khan run that fucking business and keep the wrestlers from each other's throats. And that's what he's got experience in. And he's made more of an impact in starting TNA, in keeping it alive all that time, and starting other companies, doing promotions behind the scenes than he has in the ring. And that at this point is what AEW badly needs, instead of other wrestling talent that, again, he may be good. What are we going to invest in getting Jeff over on this program when he's in his 50s? We got younger guys, but boy, they need direction.
People vomit. People vomit when they hear that music play. People just get ready to vomit all over the place as soon as they hear them.
Hey, I get ready to vomit all over the place every time this program comes on the air.
Well, here's another problem. They named him head of business development, I think it was. Head of business development. I've worked with real business development people. AEW, if they don't have a serious executive there who's handling business development, they're fucked. Not someone who can help with the wrestling end of thing and getting sponsors. But as a company, it can't be Jeff Jarrett doing that. That's what I want to know. What exactly is his job?
But do they know what the head of business development means? And see, here's another thing.
Tony should.
Well, Tony should know a lot of things. If you get a guy in the wrestling business like that, or anybody else that has experience in a variety of things and blah, 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 you don't give him you can give him any job title you want. Give it here, your head fucking ball licker. I don't give a shit. Go out and do the shit you do. That's what I did with Kerry Silkin with Ring of Honor before, which is the reason. And by the way, they were in Baltimore, and every part of the show was Ring of Honor. And I had to think that those poor people in Baltimore, some of them are like, we remember when the Ring of Honor shows were a lot better than this. But that's what you don't just say, okay, this is your department, you do this. You bring somebody in with that variety of experience in wrestling and say, help me, do your shit. Book something, talk some fucking star into coming over here, find me a sponsor, get me a TV contract, find somebody to make my program better, an announcer, whatever the fuck, coach the kids, do what you do, and whatever their job title is. So I don't care what his job title is. I just think he ought to be a resource that Tony can use that better than whacking people over the head with a guitar.
Well, we'll see how late Jeff Jarrett could stay up on Tuesday nights with Tony if he wants to make a real impact on that show. Do you understand what I'm saying, though, about the idea that if you're someone who hates TNA, or someone who just remembers the fall of TNA, whatever you want to call it, it's him and Sanjay and Jay Lethal. It drags Jay Lethal down.
In this day and age, an alternative young people's wrestling promotion, an alternative to the WWE and the establishment or whatever, needs to have young faces and young stars with older people in experience behind the scenes and behind them, leading them to be the new generation, not a clusterfuck because the limited veterans that are there are so glad to have a job, or the entitled pricks that have been named their bosses are so fucking self-taught and obnoxious they can't break down and realize they don't know what they're doing at that level, and a feckless fucking owner running around trying to be everybody's friend.
When Vince moved Pat Patterson off commentary, that's right around the time he dyed his hair. You never saw him on TV. They never said his name for years, except when they were making fun of jobbers and sexual fetishes or whatever. You never heard anything about Pat Patterson. When they had those agent pull-apart brawls, it was just another dark-haired guy. I'm not saying Jeff Jarrett has to dye his hair, but he shouldn't be involved in angles right now in 2022 on TV. Shouldn't be involved in matches. He should be working behind the scenes.
Well, and as a matter of fact, considering the level of brain power a lot of these fucking people are involved with, he might be running, if the company still exists in a year and a half, he might be running it. Tony will be in rehab or a mental institution.
You just cursed it. That's the same thing you said about him in WWE. Oh, watch out. Something happened to Vince and Jeff may run the whole thing.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I think Triple H thought that too. One of the first things he did was, well, we need you to go home. He didn't need competition. Anyway, speaking of competition, the world AEW champion had some, because up next was Jon Moxley against Lee Moriarty. And again, I guess this is how that the young folks these days, the modern generation, thinks that you elevate a talent instead of how you make your world champion look like a fucking putz. But Moxley obviously won, and it took way too long, and it was very competitive. So have we seen Lee Moriarty win a singles match on television ever? Ever?
I don't believe so, but I could be wrong.
Have we seen Lee Moriarty have a singles match on television ever?
I don't think so, but I'm not sure. I could be wrong.
His first one was with the world champion, and he took him about 10 minutes, and it was by the skin of his teeth that Moxley won. And then immediately, the other Page, who has been doing commentary, jumps in the ring and attacks Moxley and knocks him out with one big boot. So Moxley, who has been not only in the ring with everybody and not sold everybody's shit, suddenly it takes him 10 minutes to beat Lee Moriarty, and then the other Page knocks him out with a big boot. So there you go, a mid-card heel. And they just all left.
Let me ask you a question about this. Obviously, Moxley is one of the guys there who has a lot of input in what he does. And this is how he wants to see himself as a champion, how he wants to be on TV, defending the title every week. Whether it's Moxley or Hulk Hogan or anyone's world champion, what are your thoughts on this kind of build to a pay-per-view match, or just the way he's presented week by week, defending the title every single week against somebody?
You're traditionally the world champion. The last thing he has needed is wins on television, right? And in any promotion down through history, the world champion wrestled on television very sparingly. The title was usually never on the line, but I know now the financial dynamics have changed, so you can afford to have world title matches on free television. But he doesn't just need wins on TV. And it somewhat diminishes, although in Moxley's case, I mean, as we know, the people who like him, and the people who don't like him have figured out if you see one match, you're going to see everything. So I don't know whether these rules even apply, but I mean, it's not like, my God, Hulk Hogan, Steve Austin, Ric Flair, Jack Briscoe, any world champion in any era, and Jon Moxley. What's not right with this picture? So, but just... here's the thing. He's got a fan base, and some of the people like that weird personality he has. But as we know, underneath that personality is a complete blithering fucking idiot that loves deathmatch wrestling and can't teach the guys anything because he's got this fetish for garbage indie wrestlers. And, you know, he can't lead, and he can't have any other kind of match except the kind of shit that he has. So you've got an attraction, but the more people see of him, I think the more it diminishes him, or, you know, he can't be channeled because he can't do what he's told to do by his boss, because that's why he apparently was so miserable in WWE. We now found out it wasn't that he was being held down. It's that they couldn't fucking beat this goofiness out of him. So he's a conundrum to me. Would you like to move on to the next conundrum?
Okay.
I was wondering if you were still alive there for a second.
So was I when I was watching the show.
All right. Renee Moxley Good sat down with Saraya because Britt Baker didn't show up. Where have we just seen this? Didn't they just have the sit down between Brock Lesnar and Bobby Lashley where Bobby was there and Brock wasn't? Now the sit down Saraya. So Saraya and Renee just had some girl chat. And then Renee asked her about her medical status. And she said, well, I'd say something now, but I'm going to talk to one more doctor. What? And then I'll tell you next week. What? If you haven't talked to a bunch of doctors by now, what the fuck are you doing here? So nothing was said there of any account. And then we get to the big birthday party. And, you know, the Acclaimed made their entrance, and Caster rapped about Billy Gunn's birthday, and it's a birthday party, and there's a table in the ring with the presents and all the stuff. And everybody's waiting for me to shit on this, but honestly, again, you see this constantly. And the WWF, it looks even worse because they have a bigger budget, and the balloons and the empty wrapped boxes and the fucking bows around the ring posts and all the shit. And you see shit like this on Raw constantly, on SmackDown constantly. We've seen it here before, parties and celebrations and blah, blah, blah. So it doesn't stand out. But if you didn't see it all the time, this segment would have worked till the end, at least. If it was the only silly segment that you saw for a several week period of time, if it was the only party segment you'd seen in a few months or whatever, these guys are over. They've kind of got a personality that allows them to be silly. Billy Gunn has really caught on with these people. It's one of these things also that a lot of times I've said, when a lot of the rest of the show is the shits, the fans will decide for themselves, amongst themselves, how they want to amuse themselves and whether they want to just get some odd fucking guy or team or whatever over. And that's played a part in it. And it works for them. So, and they were being silly amongst themselves. They weren't being silly with people they were supposed to be mad at. So again, they did a good job. They brought out the presents, the world's greatest dad trophy, the whole 9 yards, and then the certificate of adoption, where Billy can sign it and he could actually be their real adopted dad. And of course, this is ridiculous. But again, it works for them. Until here come the ass boys. And they're pissed off, obviously, at their father turning his back. And holy jumping howdy, suddenly in from behind comes the great value Kevin Nash, William Morrissey. Apparently that is his real name. I just kept, William Morris was in my mind, but W. Morrissey, but Taz was calling him, oh, there's Bill Morrissey. At least it wasn't Jim Morrison. But W. Morrissey hits from behind, and they jump the baby faces, and they get heat on them briefly until FTR's music plays. And they get a huge pop from the crowd. Because, again, Baltimore would love to see FTR like we all would. And they come down, and by the time they get in the ring, the heels have powdered no contact. They didn't even get to make a fucking comeback. And FTR picks up the tag team belts and hands them with stern faces to the Acclaimed. And at that point, I wrote, I smell another 8-man tag team match coming. And I got news for you. Before the show's over, somebody's going to win that pony. What'd you think, Brian, here?
Well, I do love the idea that Tony's response to the way Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks have treated FTR behind the scenes is to have them come out every week and get a pop for their music and then leave. We still don't see them wrestle. All they do now is they play the music, they get a pop for them coming out, and then people quickly realize they're not wrestling and they get deflated. Horrible use of FTR, a horrible booking of FTR. Look, I like the Acclaimed, and they got themselves over, and they had the National Scissoring Day, and they've gotten away with a lot of stuff because they're really over right now. You're right that we see too much of the other stuff, but for me and my personal tastes, I wasn't crazy about the Acclaim segment. I'd like to see them just actually start having matches and let Max Caster...
That would be a plus.
Let Max Caster just rap on the way to the ring, the thing that actually got them over that they don't do anymore.
What happened to that trademark deal also? Did they win that back, or did we miss something?
What trademark deal?
Remember Mark Sterling, the fake lawyer, trademarked Scissor Me Daddy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to that. It must have happened on one of the other shows that no one watches.
Oh.
So I don't like that. And I have to be honest, I hated this week's show. I'm just going to say it here. No MJF. So there's not that one segment.
After we saw what they had MJF involved in and what he was doing last week, I think no MJF is good MJF. At least he ain't going in the wrong direction if he ain't doing anything.
It showed you a lot this week. What happens when you take MJF's one segment out of that show, the rest of the show, to me, for my sensibilities, and I try to like AEW. If everyone thinks I just hate it, I really want AEW to work. It'll be good for everybody, but it sucks right now. It's so bad. The TV's awful. The booking's bad. And there's nothing to look forward to. This whole show.
The booking's bad. The TV is awful. There's nothing to look forward to, but I want them to succeed.
I do. I want, you know what?
I know it just, I can't believe you're still optimistic at this point.
But I didn't like this. You liked it though.
I know. I didn't. It works for them. It wasn't offensive. It except until, to me, if you're going to do something like that, these people do it with, except then again, we get another beatdown with other either brand new or unknown people, W. Morrissey, climaxing in another meaningless 8-man tag where a bunch of people are grouped together for no reason, and the two fucking people that everybody wants to see that are being hidden and buried by the EVPs are once again hidden and buried in the middle of it. But they can claim, well, they're on there. We had them do something. Nevertheless, it was. This is the segment that you want to crow about. I'll let you get it out of the way. You predicted this. Patient zero for comedy wrestling. You said this as a joke last week. Yeah, one of the former ROH champions they're going to get to put Jericho over is going to be Colt Boom Boom Cabana. And it was obviously it was a joke. Number one, we said, did he even ever have the belt? And now Jericho's promo amended that to any champion, tag champion, TV champion, pure champion, women's champion. Just because even Ring of Honor in the worst days of the promotion was never desperate enough to put the belt on Cabana. But there are actually, again, people trying to say this wasn't a display of how Tony Khan has lost all control, and Chris Jericho, now he's got that Cheshire Cat smile. He has poisoned Punk's well, and now that Punk's on the way out, and he's got Tony's ear, he's going to be the smart ass. And here we go. Colt Cabana, it was exactly done to rub it in Punk's face, or what they think's going to rub something in Punk's face. But here, before we talk about this match, is Tony Khan completely bereft of his senses? That was a question to you, Brian Last.
I don't think he's completely bereft of them, but I don't think he necessarily does things based on his senses. He sometimes trusts other people's senses.
Okay, well now Chris Jericho is going to be the one to get Tony Khan sued. Because what are you doing? You already know that Punk is not a guy who apparently takes being disrespected lying down and is going to say something or do something about it, not only in this company, but of his track record. So what we've been hearing is that a buyout is being negotiated. And the only other detail that we've heard that's been publicly mentioned by anybody is that a non-compete term or clause was part of a hang-up. So that basically means, on the surface of it, Punk has said, okay, give me my fucking money and I'll be on my way. And Tony is attempting to give him his money, but apparently would want a longer non-compete clause than Punk wants, because it wouldn't work the other way. It wouldn't be Tony saying, "Oh, Punk, go anywhere right now," and Punk saying, "No, I need to." So it has to be that way, right? By just any common sense. Because Tony realizes that Punk could sue his ass over any of this at any time and win. Not only that, but if he won, or before he even won, all the EVPs, all of them would be deposed. All of them would be giving depositions under oath. All of the talent involved, anybody that had any knowledge or acquaintance with any of these people and or the situation would be under oath giving depositions, and in discovery, misconduct by the EVPs and or issues with any other talent besides Punk would come out, as well as a very close look at who did this quote-unquote independent investigation, and or how independent that those investigators really are from the Khan's entire business empire. And Punk would win a lawsuit. I think it would be a slam dunk. The only problem with that would be how long it might take, but it's not like he wouldn't win. So before you give this guy his money to go away and he signs off on whatever you have agreed on and offered him and he's taken, don't piss the fucking guy off. Don't let your minions piss the fucking guy off. Don't let your minions do the same thing that they were doing behind his back to the journalists, except now that they think they've won, they're doing it on live television in the middle of your own business that you're not in any way in control of. Don't piss the guy off or he'll sue you and he'll win. And all the things about how slapdash your company is could very well be in writing for a variety of people to see. So
for his dad to see, if we're going to be honest about it.
For his dad, how close is Shad to this investigation and to what all's going on? And how much does he know about who Tony has hired to be in these positions and how they conduct themselves? Don't piss the guy. Just get him his check and wipe your head. You've made the choice. You're going to side with the kids instead of the adult. You're going to side with the people that started the problem and fostered this environment of all friends wrestling, instead of the guy that from your own chicken lips, Tony Khan, said drew you more money than any other wrestler ever. He made that comment on numerous of occasions. So now that you've done that, give the guy his money to go away and be thankful and wipe your head that you got away with something, because elsewise you're going to get your ass sued and everybody's going to find out what a bunch of dipshits you got working for you. But in the meantime, Chris Jericho had a match with Colt Cabana. And do you know, I will say this right here and right now. Colt Cabana tried his hardest, worked his ass off. That is the most serious, best match that he's had in 15 years. Now, again, that may be like being the nicest guy in prison, but there was no of the ass in the face. There was the no Jolly Joker smile. There was the no cute little movements that he does to confound his opponent. He worked because he was trying to prove something. Now, he's still a non-entity in the wrestling business and in AEW, and he's going to be a non-entity in Ring of Honor, which is practically a non-entity itself. But at least he fucking stepped up to try to be serious to prove something. And then, of course, then Jericho beat him, because that's Jericho's thing. Not only does he want to bring in all the ex-Ring of Honor champions, an angle that gets him a win on TV every week, but he wanted to do this specifically this week so that, he could send a message up to Chicago. What'd you think of the match before we get to the afterbirth?
Oh, the match sucked. There was that great spot where they both fell off the rope to the floor. That was spectacular. You guys are old. Stop doing this shit. You know, it was what I expected it to be. I joked about it, but I was pretty confident that's exactly what it was going to be. You know, it's funny. When you think of the Bucks' friends, they got Cabana back on TV, Brian Cage back on TV. Gotta wonder if Joey Ryan's going to be next.
Well, he's going to be partners with Cage, right? Because they're close, from what I understand.
I don't like the way they're using Jericho here. It's nonstop Jericho on this show. You have Jarrett at the beginning of the show, but it's total nonstop Jericho each and every week. It feels like just a drunk episode of Raw, and everything sucks. And no one wants to see this, the Ocho, each and every week doing this. Swami doesn't want to see it.
Swami's up in arms back there.
But yeah, fuck this segment. No.
Yeah. The wood chipper. But then Jericho wins. On the way up the ramp, Jericho's stooges, Daddy Mac Daddy, and Cool Hand Luke, get Ian Riccaboni, the Ring of Honor commentator, from the announce booth and drag him over on stage and start slapping him around and breaking his glasses. What the And then here comes Claudio and Bryan Danielson and Sammy Guevara and Wheeler Useless and security. And everybody had a big phony fight with fake punches. Again, I know there's 20 people out there in a big wild skirmish, but folks, assume that the camera is on you and you're not just contributing meaningless motion to a fucking big schmoz. Somebody's going to be looking at you individually. Make your shit look good. And it's television. Anyway, so then did you catch the interview with Felix and Penthouse? Felix and Penthouse and Pac with Renee Moxley Good?
I did.
Okay. Pac comes out and gives Felix a hammer and say, you got to use this in the match tonight. Okay, maybe that might be something that you'd have wanted to do in the locker room amongst yourselves in private rather than telling everybody about it ahead of time. But here, use this hammer. So it's a three-way match, a triple threat match for the A&P title with Felix against Dino Douche against Pockets. And Brian, normally I only watch I was going to say serious wrestling matches, but I only watch the serious wrestling matches or people attempting to have a serious match. I don't watch Pockets because I don't dignify the one-note joke that quit getting funny 3 years ago. But this match had the potential to be the worst match ever held in wrestling.
Really?
So, well, think about it. In their own way, each of them are the drizzling shits. And they're all different ways that each of them are the drizzling shits. Plus, it's a triple threat match. It's a three-way. Plus, it's for a fucking title that nobody cares about. So I figured this has all the makings, right? And this on a show where we're about to see Jane Cargill against Marina Shafir. So I'm going to watch this. So here's the highlights. They double drop kicked Dino Douche to the floor, and he stayed out there and sold and wandered around for 2 full minutes while Felix and Pockets went through a phony choreographed tumbling routine at about 100 miles an hour where nobody sold anything and it looked like a kid's TikTok video. And then Dino got back in and beat both of them up in such a boring fashion that it killed the crowd and they went to the break. Then they came back. And Felix was throwing the fakest punches that I've ever seen, even worse than the previous segment. And then Penthouse and Felix tried some kind of double team on Dino. And whatever it was, everybody just kind of fell over sideways. And then Penthouse and Felix tried a double dive out of the ring on Dino. And Dino was supposed to catch both of them by the throat, like in chokeslam position. But he missed Felix, and Felix fell on the ground. So to make up for that, he went over and picked Felix up and choke slammed him through a table at ringside. And then Dino and Pockets fought, in quotation marks, up the ramp to the entranceway because, did I mention it's no count out, no disqualification, lazy booking. Shirt on sale at JimCornette.com, Saturday, November 19th at noon Eastern. And then Dino was going to go to chokeslam Pockets off the stage through a table. But Jungle Boy came out on the stage with a chair and hit Dino with it. And he dropped Pockets, and then Jungle Boy ran and cross-bodied Dino off the stage, and they both went through a table. They just broke a table 2 minutes. The big goof killed his own fucking bump. Can you imagine? He did it himself. He chokeslammed a guy through a table 2 minutes before he goes through a table. He killed his own fucking bump. Can you imagine if somebody was trying to set that match up? And they said, okay, and then you chokeslam him through the table, and then you two fight up the fucking ramp, and then the other guy's going to come out and cross-body you, and you're going to go off stage through a table. The first thing the guy taking the fucking bump off the stage through a table would say is, wait a minute. Then I ain't going to put him through the fucking table because it's going to kill my fucking bump. I'm going to not only be, I'm just choke slamming him, but I'm going to go off the goddamn stage. It's going to be a big deal. We're not going to fucking kill my bump. I might get hurt doing this. How stupid would I be to choke slam a motherfucker through the... It's like, and I don't even think I mentioned this, but in the earlier segment, what I was going to say is I know where they were going with Jeff Jarrett coming in to be a surprise when they did the reveal that was a fucking fart in church with the guy that nobody knew who the fuck he was because they justified in their mind, but then the big star comes in and they'll really go crazy. So they were thinking here, well, this may be just a choke slam through the table, but they're going to come off the stage through that table, you fucking idiots. Meanwhile, the match is still going on through all of this, with all these people not even involved in it. And as they go back to the ring, Pac brings Felix the hammer again. And Felix takes it and then throws it back, won't look at it, won't use it, won't fucking deal with Pac. And then Pockets punches Felix, one punch, and knocks him out, 1, 2, 3. The same guy, Pockets, earlier in the match, gave a fucking DDT, spinning DDT to Felix, who landed straight on his fucking head, stuck like a fence post, and popped back up 5 seconds later doing moves. But one fucking punch from this buggy whipped-armed, fucking emaciated goddamn clown. 1, 2, 3. And then here comes Pac and starts getting heat on Pockets. And then says, where's the fucking hammer? Because he can't find the hammer that he brought. So he goes and gets the hammer they used to ring the bell and gets back in the ring. But before he can use the bell hammer, more music plays, which sounded like Muzak in a funeral home. It wasn't exactly goddamn a Springsteen anthem. I don't know what the fuck, where they got this instrumental. And here comes a Japanese guy in a t-shirt and sweatpants. And the announcers are trying to, oh my God, it's Shibuti. Shibuti, Shibuti, Shibuti.
Shibata.
Whatever. It's another Japanese guy dressed in t-shirt and sweatpants. Every time they bring out a surprise guy from New Japan Pro Wrestling, he's got the same haircut, wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants. And the announcers are going crazy. But then out comes Rocky Romero and Trent and Muffin Top Taylor. And then the crowd kind of starts cheering because at least they know who those people are. And they come down the fucking ramp and Pac leaves the ring. And then Shibuti points at Pockets' belt and Pockets hands him a contract and a pen and he signs it and they stare at each other. There's been so much happen in the last 5 minutes. They've made a match between two people after they've just done 3 angles for 3 other different goddamn death grudges that I've even forgot who the fuck was involved in this thing. What the fuck? What in the God's name is going on here? Why are you laughing at me?
I'm laughing because you're not wrong.
Perplexed, puzzled, bumfuzzled, verklempt.
This was one of the worst episodes, if not the single worst episode of Dynamite. This was the episode I was like, I hate AEW. I don't want to watch anymore. Shibata, you know who Shibata is. Shibata was a very talented young Japanese wrestler who worked a stiff style and ended up doing the headbutt spot and having issues with his head.
Oh, wait, no, is he the guy they thought he was going to die and never wrestle again?
He was that guy that in The Observer it famously was reported that they removed his brain.
What? Wait, can you do that?
We talked about it way back.
That's right, you can't do that.
No, you can't remove. That's not how you fix these problems.
Maybe that's what caused Dave's problem. His brain.
But yeah, he's a talented guy that's never been on.
If this guy's come back from the brink of grim death, I'm not trying to knock him, but they brought him out on television just wearing a goddamn parking attendant's outfit like everybody would know. Oh my God, look, it's fucking Liberace. I don't know. What the fuck?
Do you think athletes should wear a suit?
Well, it depends on the circumstances. Yeah, some guys look great in suits like the Hurt Business did when they're not in their gear. Or some guys look like stars without Stone Cold Steve Austin. You ever seen him in a suit in his life? He looks like a star, but these guys from New Japan, and they're in a big building and they're not even. Maybe sometimes they put their name up on the screen so people might have a clue, but you can't just see who these fucking people are, instantly when they're all just dressed like goddamn schlubs that just wander in. Same expression, same haircut, same basic size. He assumes everybody knows who everybody in the world is. And so anyway, now we're going to get this guy against Pockets. If he was somebody, would they be bringing him in and putting him with the fucking mascot? Was it worth the plane ticket for this?
Well,
what
the public? Well, we see him as the mascot. To them, he's one of their top superstars. Well, they're not allowed to use the word superstar, are they? One of their top wrestling stars. Can they use superstars, or WWE owns that, right?
I think actually in a wrestling application, I mean, you can say he's a superstar in the world of women's golf or whatever. I guess and it wouldn't be. He's a superstar in the world of women's golf.
It could be with Pockets. You don't know.
Well, you never know. So then Tony Schiavone was back in the back with Swerve Strickland and Rick Ross. Apparently, Rick Ross is another rapper that somebody in AEW knows. Does anybody there know anybody in Nashville? Any country musicians? What about, can we get somebody from the Bluegrass Boys in there? What about
the Bluegrass Boys?
Well, I'm just thinking some other genre. Maybe a Broadway big band. What's Glenn Miller's grandson doing?
Broadway. I don't know if I'd go with Nashville. Nashville kind of sucks. I don't know if you've listened to any country music in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
I'm not even a country music fan, but at least you can actually group it as music instead of rap.
Yes, it's glam country. It's terrifically bad.
Well, that's why I mentioned bluegrass, going back to our roots, getting back to the old days, the pioneer stuff. Anyway, so Swerve and Rick is there and wants to help Swerve be the best wrestler and the world's biggest recording star. He's got an uphill road to be the best wrestler, but I'd concentrate on that before I'd attempt to make him the world's greatest recording star. But then Keith Lee comes in. I know you're going to be heartbroken to hear this, Brian, but there's trouble in paradise. Already this team, they're not getting along because now Keith is taking Swerve to task for cheating. Rick and Swerve want to keep it positive. Keith is mentioning the things that Swerve has done that and by the way, here's something. Last Friday night, we saw Swerve Strickland cut Billy Gunn. We didn't see it, but we were led to believe that he had cut one of Billy Gunn's fingers off with a pair of pliers.
Oh, yeah, he kidnapped him. I forgot about that.
He kidnapped him, kidnapped, tied up, taken away, and held for ransom. And apparently they paid it, because by Wednesday, Billy's in the ring with all of his appendages, even the ones we can't see through his clothes. And he's happy as a clam because he's having his birthday party. How'd he get loose? Did the police intervene? But
if they did, how is Swerve on the loose?
Swerve should have been, well, you know, he
filmed it.
He's on a work release program. So that's why he's hanging out with Rick Ross. And then what sense does this make? So anyway, so Keith Lee and Swerve are obviously going to break up in the near future. But in the meantime, next week, it's Keith Lee and Swerve and the Ass Boys against Acclaimed and FTR in an 8-man tag. It's a fucking rib.
Let's give one positive. Rick Ross could cut a hell of a promo. He was
the best one. I wonder if he can wrestle. Can't be any worse than old Action Jackson was. Or what was his name? Then came Bronson.
Who are you talking about?
Oh, remember Action Bronson. I was thinking Action Jackson, but he was a good wrestler. And Then Came Bronson was an old TV show from the 60s. A guy rode a motorcycle just around the country. He was a wanderer, just free-balling on a motorcycle around the country, getting into different misadventures. Then came Bronson.
I was like, what did Perry Jackson do to Jim that I don't know about?
Anyway, Action Bronson, and yeah, all right, here we go. The match we've all been waiting for, ladies and gentlemen, Jane Cargill and Marina Shafir. And when they announced this, especially it was going to be on live TV, I said, okay, we must watch, because this could be historic. And I'm pissed off that they figured out a way. I've never seen this before, but they figured out a way to have this match on live television and still not get kicked off the air. They just didn't show it. They had the match, but the only time they put a camera on it was basically when the girls weren't touching each other. As soon as the bell rings, out comes Vicky Guerrero on a stage with the microphone. Excuse me! Excuse me! And then she's with Nyla Rose, who had stolen Jane Cargill's belt. So now you've got Jane Cargill wrestling Marina Shafir with Vicky Guerrero and Nyla Rose, who stole the belt on the stage. Who are the baby faces here? Who are we supposed to cheer for? Or at some point, are we just supposed to cheer for it to be over? So Nyla Rose starts talking and doing commentary on the match while the match starts. And Jane takes Marina in the corner and just repeatedly kicks her and hits her over and over in the same place while Nyla is talking and the camera is going back and forth from the ring to the promo. At first, they did a split screen, and then I think they realized, wait a minute, we need to get the camera off the ring. Because then Jane and Marina went to the floor, and Jane is like awkwardly pushing Marina around like she's trying to remind her she's supposed to do something. And then Marina tried to come back on the floor, but it looked so bad they cut back to the promo. And then at some point, Jane rolled Marina back in the ring and started walking toward Nyla Rose, but Marina was in the ring selling like she was being tasered. Did you see that with her arm up in the... She was selling her back, but she was selling it like she was receiving electric shocks. And Jane went up the ramp to get to Nyla Rose, but Nyla Rose reminded her that she's going to get counted out, so she just turned around and ran back to the ring. And she gets in the ring. Marina fucks up some kind of roll-up, and Jane hits a pump kick, and her finish, 1, 2, 3. So this whole thing went like a minute and a half, and the camera was literally on the promo on the stage more than any contact in the ring, which was obviously by design. But then they'd kept the camera on the stage through the whole goddamn match. So as soon as the match is over with, On the stage, Kiera Hogan comes out and tries to grab the belt away from Nyla Rose, but Nyla Rose jerks it back and runs off and knocks Kiera Hogan down, and the camera missed that. The announcers had to cover it afterwards. And then Jane comes up to the stage and yells at Kiera Hogan for not stealing her belt back. And then they walked off. This made television. Hello?
Yeah, I don't know what you want me to say. The AEW women's division, everyone knows the reality of it. At this point, everyone wants to pretend that this should be on this show. That you have the caliber of top-notch women's wrestlers who should be on national TV for a segment that may or may not go past a commercial break, including picture-in-picture. The whole division is a mess. The booking of it's a mess. The amount of women who don't have any fundamentals but are on TV wrestling. There's only so much an agent can do if this is what they're handed. You know what I mean? Like, there's only so much.
Oh, I was the agent for that Linda Miles match in OVW that time. And I know what I got. Sometimes, when the bell rings, it's up to them.
The Kiera Hogan thing, I didn't know who was on the ground. I was like, what the hell's happening back there?
The announcers covered it because it happened right next to them. At least they saw it.
Hey, can I say something about something earlier that I didn't get a chance to say? I didn't like the Ian Riccaboni thing. We just talked about the idea that you don't beat up the announcer, but even if you were going to, if you want to get Jericho over, I get he is the Ring of Honor guy, but he's been heard on AEW TV a few times and seen even less. So what did you really do there? And now he's going to be seen on TV again when? You're just going to forget that he got beat up by Jericho? So I was against that. I didn't want to say that because I didn't say it earlier.
Well, it was just a throwaway thing that was done to be a transition incident to lead to a run-in when if it was done properly and focused on with an announcer that everyone really cared about and because they had been around for a while and etc., then it would mean something. But they just throw it away and do it at the wrong time. And then now the edge is off doing anything with any announcer ever, even when it might be designed to draw money. Speaking of something that was designed to draw money, the burial of the House of Black. They had a spooky video. That was a voiceover, a fellow with a British accent. I don't understand what the fuck was being talked about or what was being said. I know they were English words. I've heard them, just never in that order before. It's inexplicable spookiness from the mind or lack thereof of the House of Black, but it looked like Julia Hart was burying all the other ones. And between that and Julia Hart looking like Stevie Nicks, which is always a good thing, I like this video. Have we buried the House of Black, and is Julia Hart now going to be Stevie Hart? Please say yes to both.
I think it's no and no. I didn't like this video. After what we've just seen with Bray Wyatt and Uncle Howdy, this is a low-budget Bray Wyatt now.
But if it means we don't ever have to look at the House of Black again and we get to see Julia Hart just wander around dressed like Stevie Nicks, I'm for it.
You know that's not going to be it. That would be amazing if Tony said...
Why were they burying all of them then? Literally, in a graveyard, burying them.
If Tony said, I'll let you out of your contract if you let me do a video where you get buried and Julia Hart walks off just like Stevie Nicks, that would be interesting, but I think they're coming back.
Well, in that case, I don't know if I like that video. All right. Let's get to the main event. For the Ring of Honor World Television title, Samoa Joe versus Brian Cage with Prince Nana. And again, they're in Baltimore, and half the show was Ring of Honor, and I have to think that those people are sitting there going, God, the shows that we used to see from Ring of Honor were so much better. And at least at this point now, nobody can argue that's not true. Anybody that went to a Ring of Honor TV taping in Baltimore back in the day versus this, and there's no question this was a stinky show. So honestly, it wasn't a goddamn accomplishment beating this show, but it regularly happened. And I love Samoa Joe, and he can make any match either palatable or better or great, depending on the opponent. But Jesus Christ, again, everybody knows by now what they've got with Cage. He's fucking rotten. And he's apparently one of these guys that you can't teach because he won't listen. And so they only left him about 12 or 15 minutes for this, but my God, Joe tries with everybody, but this fucking guy, he shades of Brackus, I wrote at one point. Do you notice the physical resemblance in the muscle-bound robotic movements of Brackus and Brian Cage?
Well, I didn't get to see enough Brackus to say.
I saw a bit of Brackus. I saw Brackus before breakfast. Why have we heard Prince Nana ever speak yet?
I think there was a video package summing up something he was involved with where you heard him talk like while music was playing or something. Maybe.
Yeah. So they got a manager out there in a title match. They've never let talk on the television program. He just showed up because Tully quit. And Nana fits better in this environment anyway with younger guys, etc. But what is he there to do? He doesn't interfere. He doesn't talk. Is it, what is he there taking the fucking, valet parking tickets? At one point, Cage's weak and awkward kicks reminded me of Tom McGee. Did you see the part where he threw 3 fake kicks and then a jump up, spin around?
Yeah, the jumping kick.
A bale of cotton.
That was the best part. That was the best part.
It was like Tom McGee in the classic match with Wajima. Then Brian Cage, here's how stupid he is. Here is how clueless he is. He did a 619. He looks like Lex Luger and tries to wrestle like Rey Mysterio. Fucking idiot. You know what? I would love, if he had been around the last time that I was in a booking position, I would have loved to have hired him just to have the privilege of firing him. So then Cage tried a pump handle deal and dropped Joe right on his fucking face, almost his head. And then Joe got up and very quickly after that got a rear naked choke and tapped Cage out. And immediately, here came the Gates of Agony to attack Joe. Of course, that's the other Ring of Honor guys that we have never seen wrestle and only jump in to get heat on people. I said they were 2 fat Samoans. Now, apparently one guy's black and the other guy's Samoan. But their names are...
They're not fat either.
Well, but he's all covered up in whatever the fuck. But apparently the announcer said their names are Bishop Kong and Tia Leone, I think.
Tia Leone, isn't it David Duchovny's wife?
Well, that's what the announcer said. Bishop Kong. I guess he's the cousin of Donkey Kong. I don't know. And Tia Leone is what I heard. And then they played more music, and here came Wardlow out carrying his belt. And because there's one guy coming out, a whole 3 of these giant heels and their manager bail out with no contact. But while Wardlow is checking on Joe, Powerhouse Hobbs comes in and hits a spine buster on Wardlow. And at that point, my DVR froze. So again, who's mad at who here? Who's on whose side? What the fuck is going on? And again, they are somehow managing to both use and bury Samoa Joe and Powerhouse Hobbs at the same time. And Wardlow. What the fuck is going on?
What's going on is the show is getting booked into being an unwatchable mess. If you made it to the last segment, I was about to say you're lucky, but you're probably unlucky. This is a bad show, and I like Samoa Joe. He's done nothing. They just all of a sudden throw him out there. He's friends with Wardlow, probably so he could just break up with him and have a match with him. But there's other ways to do that. I don't know. I hate this show so much right now. There was no MJF. CM Punk's long gone. FTR's used like crap. Ricky Starks hasn't been around for a little while. No one is being used well. And then there's so many guys.
Is Hobbs comes in and lays Wardlow out. Is he going to be associated with the group of heels that was in the ring previously? Or has he gone rogue and he's going into business for himself? I know these are questions. And that's good. Oh, leave them with questions. Well, the problem is, I bet we're not going to get many answers. And as well, if you're grouping Hobbs already with Brian Cage and Bishop Kong and Tia Leone and Prince Nana, then what were the ratings? Now go ahead and surprise me. Where did they start and where did they finish up?
I am pulling them up right now. The overall rating was 910,000 viewers.
Ooh, and that is significantly down from the past few weeks as an overall number. But now, if that was the case, then certainly they didn't do what they did a week or two ago and lose about 400,000 from start to finish, or they would have had to start at 1.5 million to come up with that. Where'd they start?
Well, they began first quarter, which was Jay Lethal versus Darby Allin and Jeff Jarrett's appearance, at 1,091,000 viewers.
Okay, and I predicted that they would leave shortly after that first 5-minute segment, but at least the first 15 minutes, they had over 1 million.
Well, quarter two was Jon Moxley versus Lee Moriarty, 968,000 viewers.
Okay, so after that, they lost 123,000 people from that first match.
The end of that match, the post-match, and then Renee Paquette interviewing Saraya did 901,000 viewers.
And they lost another 67,000, so that makes 189, I believe, thousand from the start of the show.
The segment with the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn having a party, and then all the tag teams and everything afterwards, as well as the Britt Baker interview and the Chris Jericho promo, did 1,020,000 viewers.
Whoa! So they come back up another 120,000, and you know Jericho's going to be all over that, taking some credit for it.
Well, I think the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn, as much as I didn't like that segment because it's not what I like, I think that's who gets the credit for that.
I didn't say who gets it or should get it. I said who's going to be taking it. Go ahead.
The next segment, which is the 9 o'clock hour, Chris Jericho versus Colt Cabana, did 880,000 viewers.
Whoa! Oh! So they lost 140,000 people after the birthday celebration for the Ring of Honor World Title match and the return to national television of Boom Boom.
Well, following Boom Boom, Orange Cassidy versus Luchasaurus versus Phoenix, with the debut of Shibata, did 800...
Shibooty.
No, it's Shibata, and it did 882,000 viewers.
So basically, the extra 2,000 people wandered in.
We then had the segment with Swerve Strickland talking with Rick Ross and Keith Lee, as well as Jade Cargill versus Marina Shafir in the background while Naga Rose does some stand-up. That did 802,000 viewers.
Ooh, another 80,000 down. So they started out with 1,091,000, and they lost almost 200,000 of those until the fourth quarter when they got most of them back. And then what they saw in quarter 5 drove all the way and more. And now they've lost another 80,000 on top of that. So they are down almost 300,000 from the start of the program.
Well, the final quarter of the show, Jim. Samoa Joe versus Brian Cage for the Ring of Honor TV title, 738,000 viewers.
Oh, boy. Well, and again, it's not Joe's fault. It might be Cage's fault, but it's not Joe's fault, and it's not even Ring of Honor's fault. Ring of Honor, I'm not wanting to see the demise of Ring of Honor. I'm the one that kept them in business, long ago. But you can't, when you've got a promotion on television like AEW that was already starting to show some cracks in the seams when Ring of Honor came along and now is full-blown imploded over the last fucking 2 or 3 months, you can't spend your entire time on television trying to get another promotion over on the television show that is supposed to be about trying to save your existing promotion. And there are 353,000 people that decided from the start of the program to the finish, fuck this. And when we would get the local ratings in Louisville here, just the local ratings for OVW television, and we were on 11 to midnight, we didn't lose people like in percentages like that to sleep at midnight.
What about the argument that the World Series was taking place?
Wasn't it taking place through the whole goddamn show?
Well, there was a team no-hitter taking place that people may have wanted to see. I don't know if that would take a big dent out of the wrestling audience, but it was happening.
What? I can't do this math in my head, and I can't reach a calculator. What percentage is 353,000 of 1,091,000? I'm saying it's close to 33% just by doing off top of my head business. Somewhere around 30, 32. What would be happening short of goddamn nuclear fire showers outside of people's homes that would cause a program to lose a third of its audience in over 2 hours?
Lack of star power, lack of good booking, lack of angles or people that you care about if you watch that show or have tuned in or just flicked by.
All right, you didn't have to come up with several different fucking valid answers to that question.
Oh, I'm flicking by. It's 9 o'clock. Oh, there's Chris Jericho. Who's he going to wrestle? I don't know who this fucking guy is. I've never seen him on my TV before. I'll just turn the channel. And I'm not even saying that as a shot at Cole Cabana. There's a lot of guys you could say that about that are actually on the roster there. That they're on this show, they're interacting with main eventers, and it's being forced. And it's not, this was the ultimate of being forced. This was the ultimate of pettiness is what this was. But it doesn't make people want to see the show. It may make the Young Bucks locker room happy, which is different than the overall locker room. Let's just also clarify that. CM Punk has a locker room. The Young Bucks and their buddies are in their room too.
And here's the thing is now they think that, okay, we won this little power play in their minds. So now everybody's going to be scared of us and they're either going to join our little merry band of misfits or they're going to keep their pie hole shut. And it may come to pass that they never get another legitimate, recognized mainstream star to come in that company. That may be the situation that comes from this. But if they do at some point get another big star that's not of the temperament of a Bryan Danielson and just wants to wrestle and not make waves and likes everybody and friend of furry woodland creatures, but another guy who's going to want to do business and take care of his career at least, if not help the whole company, and they're going to have this same shit go on again. Then maybe again, the fucking Bucks will get taken down and have their fucking eyes blacked and their goddamn pride hurt.
It's the same thing week after week. It's not the World Series. People keep tuning out. There was the one week, I think it was Moxley versus Jericho, where they stayed to the end. Because that was maybe the main event match in AEW right now. If it doesn't have MJF in it, those two. Other than that, every single week, nothing's holding this audience.
And you can say, hey, maybe they're in over their head. Maybe they've got a program that's a lead into them that has more viewers than they're ever going to get on a regular basis and is more popular with the mainstream. But that would indicate that then after the first 15 minutes or so, if it was a good television program standing on its own, approximately the same number of people or more would be there through the rest of the program instead of continuing to drop every 15 minutes almost all the way through the thing. As we've talked about, that's something that never happened in the days of Raw, or I don't think still happens with Raw. And I don't think still happens with SmackDown. There's variation, there's up and downs through the quarter hours, there always is. And there used to be 20 years ago swings of many more viewers from quarter hour to quarter hour, even in Raw. But that's because they were starting with numbers that were so much bigger. If they would, at some points, losing 500,000 or 600,000 viewers in a quarter was percentage-wise, not that big of a deal when you were starting with 6 or 7 million or whatever. So this is not only wide swings, but wide percentages.
And the other thing is, and I said it earlier, there has to be a hard discussion about the women's division. I know that the hardcore fan who loves all wrestling is on Twitter, and they love whatever you do with the women. Whatever it is, they'll love it. But it's driving people away from the show, and it's not good. If you want to look at it in terms of a critical eye, the booking's not good, the matches typically are not good, people get hurt, people look like they're about to get hurt. And then the other half of it is it drives people away from the show. I mean, I hate to say just put them on Dynamite or on Rampage, because I think even that show's numbers, which are abysmal, would drop lower. Because I think the hard...
As Jerry Jarrett said that time to Robert Fuller, Robert, it can't get any worse. And Robert said, oh, yes, it can.
But that's the thing. If the women's division actually hurts the product and hurts the show, can you have the discussion about the idea of doing something else with it so it's not eating up Dynamite?
Can you have the discussion about not doing it? Everybody in the world that wants to be a professional wrestler doesn't necessarily have to get to be. Just like everybody that wants to be a rock star or a double knot spy, whatever, doesn't necessarily get to be. And they've given it to a lot of people. And maybe they ought to just let some contracts expire and then figure, okay, Britt Baker can talk her ass off. Let's put her with the top heel group as a Sherry Martel. And there you go. She doesn't have to wrestle every week. And she'd make more money and probably add more to the program.
Stop breaking her nose.
Stop breaking her face. And Saraya, she's a name. Well, let's let her fucking do interviews so she doesn't break her neck again.
I don't think that... Well, okay, I get the point.
Well, you know, whatever. It doesn't have to be. You can be a part of the television program without actually getting dropped on your head on a regular basis, but they don't have to have a women's division. This, again, everybody tries to copy the industry leader, the WWE, and now they want to make, you can't afford a women's division. There's not enough good women's talent. Then you just muck up the card. And it's just simply to act like you're going to be one of those cool promotions to give all the girls a chance also. Well, the girls can have a chance. You're not preventing them from wrestling anywhere. You're just saying, I ain't got enough good guy wrestlers. I especially don't have enough good girl wrestlers, and I'm going to goddamn limit my budget. We're going to concentrate on what sells the fucking tickets. And what sells the tickets ultimately is the guys on top, not even the guys on the bottom, much less the girls anywhere. So prioritize, people. Well, I'll tell you what, AEW Wednesday night may have not been a masterwork, but I know how you can get a piece of one. You know, Brian, the stock market's all over the place. You can't trust any investments, precious metals, even collector plates are going down these days. But you know what never goes down? The great masterworks, the great works of art of human history, the showcases of human talent that are timeless and never go out of style, and they never go broke. They always appreciate. The Rembrandts, the Van Goghs, the Picassos, the Monettes, all of them.
Monet, and even some of the newer artists like a Warhol or a Basquiat, of course.
Well, yes, and you know, Warhol, when he's not teaming up with Samoa Joe, he's doing some fine work.
That's not Warhol, that's Ward Joe. That's Wardlow, excuse me.
Wardlow. Well, I'm sorry, but all those wars, they're all appreciating. And folks, our friends at Masterworks can tell you how to make some money as well in this, because you know, before I was mistaken, Brian, when I first heard that Masterworks allowed you to get a piece of fine art, I thought, you know, they were going to sell you like a 3 or 4 inch section, like the Mona Lisa's nose or something like that.
I told you that wasn't, no.
Well, you informed me that was not the case. You actually get a share in a complete work of art, because you can't afford the whole thing unless you're goddamn Elon Musk or whatever. That sounds like some kind of stinky cologne. But anyway, so you get a piece of a fine artwork. And every time that the crack team of international art thieves at Masterworks breaks into a museum across the world,
no, they're not art thieves.
One of these.
No,
you mean they actually obtain them legally?
They're not art thieves. They don't break into any famous museums anywhere in the world. These are all legally obtained, legally owned pieces of art. Yes.
I just like to hear you say the word museum. But so they're legally obtained.
That's right.
Well, in that case, then, it's even a better deal. Because now, not only do you not have to buy the Mona Lisa's nose and worry about somebody may want another piece of her anatomy, but also these things are legally obtained. So that means that every time that the fine folks at Masterworks send their sales crew out to do some under-the-table negotiations out of the trunk of a car and pawn one of these things off, well, then in that case, you're going to share in it. Now, you're not trying to tell me that's all above board too, are you? Where they actually advertise these sales and sell it right out in front of people?
Once again, no one said anything. And there certainly isn't anything in the copy about selling art out of a trunk, and that won't be happening here. This is all legally obtained works of art from around the world, from throughout time, that you can own a piece of. What a wonderful investment opportunity.
So you mean to tell me, Brian, that you can actually legally and above board obtain a share of ownership in a fine piece of work of art, and when these are sold totally above board, you will receive the proceeds commensurate with your share? Well, this is incredible. How are people not jumping on this? I mean, look at these numbers. They just had a sale 3 weeks ago, 21.5% net return. That means if you'd put in 10,000, you'd get 12,000 back. Boom. Just like that. 20% on 6 out of the 7 sales that they've had so far. Why in the world would somebody not want to do something like this? Can you explain that to me?
I think all those people that sit at home and think about putting on their own wrestling show, and they're going to put a few grand into that and lose all their money and look like fools and put on an embarrassing showcase of fools, why don't you take that money and put it in Masterworks?
Well, there you go. And all you've got to do, because we know people, all you've got to do to not only sign up, but get up to $200 in free shares is go to masterworks.art/Jim. And that will take you right to where you'll learn about your free shares. Masterworks.art/Jim. You can get up to $200 of free shares in the Mona Lisa's left boob or whatever, because
in the Mona Lisa.
And maybe even the Mona Lisa entirely, or maybe even Papa Lisa. You never know. Who was the whole Lisa family? Do we know how many relatives Mona had?
You're assuming Lisa's her last name?
Well, Mona Lisa. Her first name would be Mona, last name would be Lisa.
What could be her middle name?
Well, I'll tell you the full name, masterworks.art/Jim.